Hello and welcome to Salome's Writer Therapy, where you and your writing connect. I had this chat with a writer friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and she asked me about how she could fill up her story or make it more without sidetracking the story or adding things that didn't matter. And the answer, as I will discuss in today's episode, is subplots. I'm going to share with you how to create subplots that add depth and dimension to your story without overtaking your main plot. Along with today's episode, to help you create your own subplots, I have created a free guide that you'll find in the description below, so please check it out. So grab your favorite beverage and a cozy spot, and let's dive into today's episode. Alright, so before we get into the hows of creating your subplot, we must first get into what a subplot actually is. In the episode where I talked about how to create your plot, which I've linked below, I said that the subplot is a plot line that happens on the peripheral of the main external plot. But even though it happens to the side of the main plot, a subplot has to be connected to the main plot. Remember, it is all connected. Now, some people say subplots are in effect your side characters. Now, that can be true because most of the time we use side characters to facilitate the subplot, but that is not always the case. Basically, the subplot of your story is a connected but separate storyline that, through its progression, enables the main character to achieve the goals of the main plot. Think of it as a side quest. In order for your character to reach the end of the story or to get to the completion of the main plot, they have to get information or perspective or learn some things about themselves or the world or the plot, or even get an object from the subplot before the main plot can be concluded. And just a note here, the subplot serves the same function for the internal plot as it does for the main plot. So to give you an example of a subplot, let's say your main story is a mystery. Now, if you're unclear about your own story's main plot, check out the episode on creating plot that I've linked in the description below that will help you figure out what your main plot is. Okay, but for now, let's get back to the example. So you're writing a mystery, but you want to add a subplot. As a subplot, you could add a romantic relationship. You could add a family drama of some sort. You could also add some kind of character flaw like anger management issues or something that your character has to overcome. Now remember, the subplot is different from the internal plot or the character arc. So if you add a character flaw in a subplot, make sure that it's different from the challenges you introduce in the internal plot or the character arc. So now you might be wondering, do I even need a subplot? I mean, if the subplot is only there to get the main plot concluded, then do you really need subplots if the story can be told without it? In short, no. You don't need subplots in your story. But as you'll see in just a minute, the benefits of a subplot are far greater than this one function. So let's talk about some other benefits of adding subplots to your story so you can see what I mean. Alright, so one of the first benefits that I'm going to quickly mention is increased depth and complexity. Subplots allow you to introduce additional layers to your story. They can provide depth to characters, add complexity to the plot, and contribute to a more immersive and rich narrative experience. Another benefit of subplots is character development. Subplots offers opportunities for character development beyond the main storyline. Characters can face challenges, make decisions, and undergo growth in the context of subplots, making them more dynamic and relatable. Another benefit of subplots is world building. Subplots can be used to explore different aspects of your story's world, whether it's a subplot involving secondary characters, a different setting, or a unique perspective. It helps to broaden the scope of your fictional universe. Another benefit is pacing and tension. Subplots can serve as a tool for pacing, allowing you to vary the intensity and the tone of the story. They provide moments of tension, relief, or anticipation, contributing to the more engaging reading experience. The next benefit is foreshadowing and theme reinforcement. Subplots can be used to foreshadow events in the main plot or reinforce the story's themes. By weaving interconnected threads throughout the narrative, you can create a more cohesive and thematically rich story. The next benefit is reader engagement. Multiple storylines can keep readers engaged by offering variety. If one aspect of the story slows down or becomes less interesting, the presence of subplots ensures that there is always something of interest happening. Next benefit is parallel storylines. Subplots can run parallel to the main plot, offering different perspectives or exploring related themes. This can create a tapestry of interconnected events, contributing to a more intricate and satisfying overall narrative. The next benefit is conflict and resolution. Subplots can introduce additional conflicts and challenges for characters to overcome. This adds tension and suspense to the story as readers are invested in multiple narrative arcs with their own set of problems and resolutions. Another benefit is emotional impact. By delving into your character's personal struggles, relationships, and growth through subplots, you can invoke a broader range of emotions in your readers. This emotional depth can make the story more resonant and memorable. And the last benefit that I'm going to touch on is plot twists and surprises. Subplots can provide opportunities for unexpected twists and surprises. Elements introduced in subplots can later intersect with the main plot in unexpected ways, keeping your readers intrigued and guessing. Basically, subplots can enrich your story by providing a multifaceted and layered narrative, offering opportunities for character development, world building, and thematic exploration. They contribute to a more engaging and satisfying reading experience for your audience. Alright, so now that you have an idea of the benefits of adding subplots to your story, let's get into how you actually do it. The struggle most of us face when adding subplots is how to do it so that it actually matters to the story, that there is enough of a subplot that it makes sense to keep it in the story, but also to do it so that it doesn't overshadow the main plot or become more interesting or engaging than the main plot. The most important thing when creating a subplot is to know the reason you're doing it. What is the subplot's purpose? And to determine this, look at the different benefits that I've talked about. I have also listed them in the free resource below, so you can go check that out there. Now, just a quick tip. You can have multiple reasons for one subplot. You do not need a different subplot for each reason. Now, the reason I want you to be clear on your subplot's purpose is because that will help you to stay on track while you are plotting or writing it. If you don't know why you're adding the subplot, then you might let it flounder on the back burner, and then you might find you only have an assortment of disconnected details that don't fit into your overall story, and it would be logical to just cut it out. Or you might find yourself building on it to find that purpose, and before you know it, you have created such a large plot that it seems only logical to replace it as the main plot. The thing is, you want the subplot to add to your story, not to become the story, and not to be useless. So here are a few things that you can look at to start creating your subplots. The first thing to think about is what themes you are exploring in your main plot. Now, for examples of themes, think of things like good versus evil, or being brave against adversity, or living with grief, or how to be a good parent, or love overcomes all, etc. Now, think about how you can either create events or circumstances in a subplot that approaches the same or similar themes, but from a different perspective or angle. Another thing that you can think about is the conflicts that you have in your main plot, and think about what types of conflict you can add in a subplot that feeds into that conflict. Now, I'm going to give you a very basic example just so you can kind of understand what I'm saying. So, if your main plot is a space rock hurtling to destroy the planet, you could add a subplot where there is a conflict between different military groups that might seem unconnected, but will have an impact on how these groups handle the space rock situation. Another thing that you can think about is your character, their flaws and their relationships, and think about how you can use these within a subplot, like a romance or a family drama, or overcoming some addiction or flaw, that would then change them in a way that they can reach the end of the story or complete the main plot. So this would be like adding a romance to your story so your character can learn to be more confident, and as a result, they ace their job interview that they wanted to get. Now, once again, that's a very simple example, but hopefully you get an idea what I'm going for here. Another thing that you can think about when creating your subplot is to think about the events or circumstances in your main plot, and then think about how you can use a subplot to add different views or perspectives to those events, or to add tension or depth to what is happening. For example, adding another point of view character like an antagonist or a side character to provide a different perspective of the plot events. And another thing that you can think about is your story setting or the world building that you've done. And think about how you can add a subplot that explores or enhances your story's world, the cultures, the people, etc. Now, I have listed these all in the resource below, so check that out. And I've also linked the episode on each of these that I have created on conflict, character, plot, and setting down below, so you can go check that out as well if you want to. Remember, you don't need a different subplot for each of these. For example, you can add one subplot that deals with theme, character, and conflict, and another subplot that deals with character, setting, and plot. Or you can add each separately. The choice is ultimately yours. Alright, I just have a quick note on multiple subplots. First of all, you don't need multiple subplots. Remember, a subplot is a separate storyline, even though it is connected to your main plot and internal plot. So for each subplot you add, it will add more work. You are the only one who can determine if you are willing or capable of writing multiple subplots along with your main plot and internal plot. But if you are new to writing, I would suggest you keep it as simple as possible. You can always add a subplot later. Just remember that whatever subplots you choose to add to your story, they need to be connected to your main plot. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to add it at all. And also, don't forget to be as clear as possible as to why you're adding the subplots in the first place. It will make the plotting and writing so much easier. And remember to check out that free resource in the description below to find that list of subplot benefits, as well as a guide on how you can start creating your own subplots that are meaningful and connected to your overall story. Now, if you're wondering about how to weave the subplots together with your main and internal plots, then make sure you're subscribed and getting notifications, because we'll be talking about that next week. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope you found it helpful, and if you have any questions or future episode suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. So until next time, may your creativity flow freely and your fingers dance upon the keys. Keep writing with joy and stay connected. Cheers.